Freedom is one of the most cherished values in a democracy. But are these freedoms absolute? The answer lies in the Article 19 of the Indian Constitution. Hello everyone, my name is Rajni Jha. Welcome to Drishti IAS. In this lecture, we will understand all the 6 freedoms that are given in Article 19, their reasonable restrictions, important judgments, and constitutional amendments for UPSC. Let's get started. So Article 19 gives right to freedom. It is a fundamental right, and like other fundamental rights, it is present in part 3rd of the Constitution. I've told this to you earlier as well that fundamental rights are present in the part 3rd of the Constitution. How can you remember them? You can remember them using a rhyme, that fundamental rights are given for free in the part 3. So you can rhyme it and remember. Now, Article 19 guarantees 6 fundamental freedoms. Earlier, there were 7. We will talk about the 7th one as well. But now, there are only 6 fundamental freedoms that are present in Article 19 of the Indian Constitution. These are available only to Indian citizens. That means that a foreigner cannot come to India and say that my, let's say, right to speech has been violated. All the freedoms, the 6 freedoms that are present in Article 19, they're available only to Indian citizens. It is enforceable only against the state, not against private individuals. What does that mean? That means that if the government or state violates these freedoms, you can approach the courts. So these rights are not enforceable against private individuals. For example, a private company refuses to publish your article. So generally, you cannot claim that Article 19 has been violated in this case. It is not available to legal persons. Legal persons are like companies or corporations. So it is only available to citizens. It is only available to Indian citizens, not to legal persons. It is only available to natural people, natural persons or citizens, right? So a company cannot say that my freedom of speech under Article 19 has been violated because company is not a natural citizen, right? A natural person. Now, originally, as I told you, Article 19 had 7 freedoms in it. Right to property was also given in Article 19, in Article 19, 1F. But it was removed by 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978. And right now, this right to property is present under Article 300A. It is given under Article 300A, and it is a legal or constitutional right, no longer a fundamental right. Now, in Article 19, there are 6 freedoms that are given to you, as I told you. How can you remember these? There is a simple mnemonic, there is a simple acronym, whichever you want to call it. You can remember it by using that, which is SAM can reside. So, SAM is the acronym. I've made a story out of it. SAM can reside anywhere and practice any profession. Practice any profession. So the story is, there's a person Sam. Sam can reside anywhere and practice any profession. Now Sam, S stands for speech and expression, which is given in Article 19, 1A. A stands for assembly, which is freedom of peaceful assembly. Another A stands for associations. So it is the freedom to form associations, unions, and cooperative societies. M stands for movement. So there is freedom of movement. Then the next is remove can. We have reside anywhere. So freedom of residence and settlement in any part of India. And the last part is practice any profession, which is freedom of profession, occupation, trade, or business. So Sam can reside anywhere in India and practice any profession. SAM is S, speech and expression, A, peaceful assembly, A, form associations, unions, and cooperative societies, M, movement, then reside is residence and settlement, and finally that is practice, which is practice any profession, which is profession, occupation, trade, or business. These are the 6 freedoms that have been given to you, which have been given to every Indian citizen. The first is freedom of speech and expression, which is given in Article 19, 1A. As the name suggests, every citizen can express ideas through speech. Now that speech can be in any form. It can be in written form as well. So it can be speech, printing, films, internet, writing, pictures, electronic media, social media, or any other mode of communication. Next, are these rights absolute? No, these are not absolute rights. There are reasonable restrictions by the state that can be imposed Now, the important word here is reasonable. State cannot impose any arbitrary restriction. There has to be reasonable restriction. These reasonable restrictions can be on the grounds of sovereignty and integrity of India. What does that mean? And very important, it is added by 16th Amendment Act of 1963. This restriction was added in the 16th Amendment Act of 1963. What does that mean? This means that any speech that threatens India's unity, independence, or territorial integrity can be restricted. Second, security of the state. Now this, what does that mean? Any speech that endangers country's security can be restricted. Friendly relations with foreign states. This was added in the first Constitutional Amendment Act 1951. What does that mean? Any speech that could damage India's friendly relationship with other country, that can be restricted. Fourth, public order. This was also added in the first Constitutional Amendment Act of 1951. What does that mean? Any speech that incites a riot or communal violence. So it will disrupt public order, so that can be restricted. Decency or morality. Decency or morality means publishing any obscene material in public will be restricted. Contempt of court. I'm sure you know. Contempt of court means people cannot insult judiciary or interfere with the administration of justice. That will be considered contempt of court. Then defamation. What is defamation? Defamation is any speech that can harm another person's reputation is called defamation. So that can be restricted. And finally, incitement to an offense, which is also added in the First Amendment Act of 1951. This means that the government can restrict speech that encourages other people to commit crimes. Incitement to offense that incites other people to commit crimes, that can be restricted as well. Now, there are some important judgments related to this, which is first is Ramesh Thapar versus State of Madras, in which freedom of speech was called the foundation of democracy. Next is Bennett Coleman versus Union of India 1973. In this, freedom of press was considered a part of Article 19(1)(a), which is speech and expression, right? Next is Shreya Singhal versus Union of India 2015. In this, section 66A of the IT Act was struck down, which meant that online free speech will be protected now, right? Next, K.S. Puttaswamy 2017. Here, right to privacy was also recognized in Puttaswamy case. So this becomes again very, very important. Next is Anuradha Bhasin versus Union of India 2020. Here, access to internet, because especially in today's time, everybody is on the internet. It is becoming a digitalized world. So access to internet is important for exercising freedom of speech and business, because everybody is online now, right? So indefinite internet shutdown cannot be done. That's what was said in the Anuradha Bhasin versus Union of India 2020 case. The next is Article 19(1)(b), which is freedom of assembly, which means that citizens can hold public meetings, organize demonstrations, and take out processions. But the condition is this must be peaceful. This must be without arms. So when we talk about right to protest, it actually derives its legitimacy from Article 19(1)(a) and Article 19(1)(b), that is right to freedom of speech and expression, and freedom of assembly. From these two, the right to protest gets its legitimacy from. Next, what is not protected? Violent assemblies, armed gatherings, riots, assemblies which disturb public order. Because there is no fundamental right to strike. We have right to protest, but we don't have right to strike. So there are restrictions on similar grounds. In fact, you'll find in all the 6 freedoms that we have been given, the restrictions are more or less on the similar grounds. So grounds of sovereignty and integrity of India, public order, government may also regulate traffic, public convenience and safety, right? Because maintaining these things also is a function of state. So for them, this can be regulated. The assemblies can be regulated. The processions can be regulated if it violates traffic or public convenience or safety for that matter. Next, what are the important legal provisions here? Section 144, I'm sure you know about this. Now this section 144 is, what does it mean? A magistrate may prohibit meetings if there is danger. Section 144 is usually issued when there is danger for public safety, public tranquility, human life, health, riot and affray. When any protest gets violent, usually in such cases, Section 144 is imposed, right? Next is related to this is unlawful assembly under IPC Section 141. If 5 or more people become an unlawful assembly, if their object is to resist the law, or occupy property forcefully, or commit criminal offense, or if they force someone into illegal acts or threaten public officials. So if 5 or more people try to do any of these, it becomes an unlawful assembly, and that is not allowed under Article 19. What is the important judgment here? Important judgment here is Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan versus Union of India case in 2018, which gave citizen the right to protest peacefully, a fundamental right. So right to protest peacefully was given in this Mazdoor Kisan Sangathan versus Union of India case. But it has to be remembered that there has to be, the protest must balance public order and right of others. So it's not like the rights of one group should violate the rights of someone else or other groups. If there are people who want to go to the office, if there are people who want to continue with their daily life, then one community or one section of people who are conducting the protest or who are going for the protest, they cannot violate the other people's lives. So there has to be a balance between public order and the rights of others, right? In case of protest as well. Next is freedom to form associations. So we saw S, A, next is this A, and then we have M. So freedoms to form associations. Now citizens can form political parties, companies, clubs, NGOs, trade unions, societies, partnership firms, cooperative societies. This also includes the right to continue an association and right not to join an association. So you can join an association, that is your right, but at the same time, if you don't want to join an association, nobody can force you to join an association. That is also your right under this. Next is M. Before that, there is an important amendment, 2011 amendment, which is 97th Constitutional Amendment, which added cooperative societies in this, right? So it added cooperative societies to Article 19(1)(c). You can form associations, trades, and cooperative societies as well. And this was added because normally it is asked as a question that cooperative societies was added in Article 19(1)(c) under which Constitutional Amendment Act? So that was 97th Constitutional Amendment Act. Now again, there are some restrictions. What restrictions? On more or less similar grounds. Sovereignty and integrity of India, public order, morality. Now important point here is the trade unions do not have a fundamental right to strike. Nobody has a fundamental right to strike. We have seen that earlier as well. And effective collective bargain, lockouts, they cannot lock out, they cannot have a strike. That is not a fundamental right that is given to you, to them, right? So these are governed by labor laws. These are governed by labor laws. These are not under this. Next is freedom of movement. S, A, and the next is M. M is movement. So freedom of movement means the citizen can move. They may move freely throughout the territory of India. Purpose? What is the purpose of this? That it ensures national unity. It prevents regionalism. So when a citizen knows that he can move to any part of India, that he feels like an Indian citizen, right? So the purpose was to ensure national unity and prevent regionalism. What is the restriction? Again, more or less same. First, general public interest, and very important in this is protection of scheduled tribes. So if there are tribal areas, forest areas, tribal areas, then that particular state can impose restrictions. That particular state can impose restrictions on movement into those areas wherever tribal people are present. So that is not a violation of Article 19. So restricted entry into tribal area is an example of the restriction placed under freedom of movement. Next, what is internal movement versus external movement? Internal movement, it is protected under Article 19. External movement is foreign travel. Internal movement is within the territory of India. External movement is foreign travel. It is protected under Article 21A. So if you are asked in movement that foreign travel is protected under which article, you will not say it is protected under Article 19 because it comes under Article 21. And because we have just learned movement, sometimes we get confused. So be very careful about this. Next is, so we were done with S, A, M. Now is reside anywhere and practice any profession. These two are left. Let's have a look at them. So reside anywhere means freedom of residence. The citizens may live anywhere in India and settle permanently in any part of India, anywhere. What is the purpose? Again, to promote national unity, national integration, and remove internal barriers, right? Nobody will feel like I only belong to this region and not to any other part of India. So to remove internal barriers. What is the restriction? More or less same kind of restrictions, general public interest and protection of scheduled tribes. So whenever there is a movement, or whenever we have a freedom of movement or to reside somewhere, the scheduled tribes are especially protected. So restrictions on settlement in protected tribal areas is under the restrictions of Article 19(1)(e), which is freedom of residence. And the last is freedom of profession, which says that every citizen may practice any profession, carry on any occupation, and conduct any trade. They can start any lawful businesses. Not just any businesses, lawful businesses. Again, what are the restrictions? To regulate professions, right? The state may regulate professions, prescribe technical qualifications. So, for example, state can say that only a person with medical qualification will treat patients. Now, that does not come under that does not violate Article 19(1)(g). Why? Because this is under restriction, right? The state may regulate profession. They can give basic qualification. What should be the qualification to practice any profession? Otherwise, I can just become a doctor tomorrow without any qualification, right? But that cannot happen, because here the state provides restrictions to regulate profession, prescribe technical qualification, and impose reasonable restriction in public interest. They can establish state monopolies. So these are some of the restrictions under Article 19(1)(g). What is not protected? Of course, it only protects it only protects lawful professions. It does not give you the right to carry on immoral profession, illegal business, or dangerous trades. It goes without saying. Now, what is the doctrine of reasonable restriction? Now, everywhere I kept saying that the state can impose reasonable restrictions. State may impose restrictions, but the restrictions have to be reasonable. It cannot be arbitrary. What is the meaning of that? First is legality, that there must be a valid law to do that. To impose that restriction, there must be a valid law. That is the first point, that is the first test to check whether there is reasonable restriction or not. Second is legitimate aim, that the state must pursue a constitutional objective such as public order, national security, or morality. So, if any of these is violated, then state can impose restriction. Otherwise, it will be considered arbitrary, that the state did not like it, so they started imposing restrictions. So, for example, in protest, the state may not simply stop a protest because the people or the citizens who are sitting in the protesters are criticizing the government. If they are not violating any of these things, if there is no public order that is being violated, if the national security is not threatened, if morality and decency is maintained, then they cannot simply stop them because the protesters are criticizing the government. Then it will not be legitimate aim, right? Next, similarly, proportionality has to be there. Whatever restriction you're trying to impose, that has to be necessary, and it has to be proportional to what is happening. It cannot be excessive. So, if a peaceful protest is happening and a peaceful protest causes minor inconvenience, let's say, then the state cannot start imposing excessive police force to stop them. That will not be considered proportional. So, for reasonable restriction, this is called the doctrine of reasonable restrictions. For this, these three tests are must. First, legality should be there. There should be a legitimate aim. The force has to be necessary, and the force should be proportional to the situation. It cannot be excessive. Now, there are some important constitutional amendments here to remember. The first one is First Amendment Act 1951. This added public order in the restrictions, friendly relations with foreign states, and incitement to an offense. This as grounds for restricting speech. Similarly, there is 16th Constitutional Amendment Act 1963. This added sovereignty and integrity of India as ground for restriction of speech, association, and assembly. Similarly, there is 44th Constitutional Amendment Act 1978. It removed right to property from Article 19. Now it is a legal or constitutional right. And there was 97th Constitutional Amendment Act 2011, which added cooperative societies under Article 19(1)(c). We have already seen all those. I've just summed them up. Now, before we move to the last part of this session, my NCERT sessions are going on, live NCERT classes where we cover new NCERTs every day at 5 p.m. sharp from Monday to Friday. And tomorrow we'll be starting with chapter 4 of class 6 NCERT. So please do join me tomorrow sharp at 5 o'clock. And the classes go on from Monday to Friday. All right. Now we move to the last part of the session, which is a question that you have to answer. The question says, which of the following were added as grounds for restricting freedom of speech by first Constitutional Amendment Act. So that's it for today's session. I really hope that you enjoyed the lecture and you actually understood everything that I was trying to convey. And I'll see you in the next class. Until then, take care.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.